Hello, it's Tyson Sharp here. And if you're looking to become an influencer and a leader in your space, this is the episode for you. Let's dive in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Awaken Your Business podcast. I have Cory Lee here. I talked to Cory, when was it, a couple of weeks ago, and we just jumped on the phone, and I loved his energy, everything about him, and I think that's the core premise of the reasons why I wanted to have Cory on here. Because if you're looking to be an influencer, if you're looking to build your business, especially in an aligned way, that's what we're all here for, and that's what Cory can give you some tips and some advice and to share his story on, because no doubt he's the one he's the leader in all this. He trains leaders, he goes into corporations and does all these things, but he also teaches people how to be an influencer, what he calls world famous, and do it in an aligned way where you don't have to sacrifice, your family, your spirituality, your health, anything like that, all the things that are important to you. So I'm keen to dive into this and learn from Cory. So Cory, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Tyson. Man, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come on and get to share. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, yes, sir.
Awesome. Beautiful. I mean, this is what it's all about. I started this podcast a while ago just to get guests like you on, because when we hear from someone's story, when we hear from their experience, we can very, very easily start to see where we can start to pivot in our own lives. And a lot of people who listen to this conversation are growing their businesses. They're putting out content. They're meeting new people. They're socializing, and they're starting to build business relationships. And so anything that we can, start to wrap our minds around in terms of how to do that in an aligned way, I'm all for it. I'm definitely all for it. But feel free to share. What is your story? What are you all about? How is it that you got to doing what you do?
Yeah. So kind of like you said, I do leadership training and development. I develop leaders and build businesses, kind of what I like to say. But my background is actually in the medical field. I'm a physical therapist assistant, and also we owned a few gyms. But really, kind of my story starts a long time back, I guess you would say. I was raised at an early age by my mom and my grandmother. And that's because when I was about 3, my dad, he took this piece of paper and he wrote on this piece of paper and taped it to the door of our single wide trailer and told he was going to move away with another lady. And my mom got the opportunity to raise a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old on her own. But she wasn't on her own, Tyson. She had my grandmother. And I can really still hear my grandmother's voice to this day. She would say, these two grandbaby boys of mine, they ain't growing up to be no sissies, right? That's kind of what she would say. But, and it was really in that environment, had some programmed beliefs. And I'm sure just like you guys, there's some idioms or some sayings that were said. And one of the sayings that I was raised with was, don't take risk, because it's better to be safe than it is to be sorry. And I'll be honest with you, Tyson, that just didn't sound like life right there. It just didn't sound like life. I always dreamed of business and really had that entrepreneurial spirit. But I can remember when my wife, she was still in college and I was working, but we would be driving around town and we would say, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if we had our own physical therapy clinic? And wouldn't it be cool if this physical therapy clinic also had a gym with it? We were helping people with their health and fitness. And it really just started out as a dream. And over time, we made that dream a reality. And long story short, in a 5-year period of time, we had built up 4 gyms, 2 physical therapy clinics, and had 3 kids all in a 5-year period of time, and sold all the businesses, kept the kids, and I've transitioned into developing leaders from there. But man, it's been a great journey, awesome journey. Learned a ton of lessons, some the hard way, but it's all been great. Yes, sir.
Amazing. That's so cool. And not only, clearly that you had business and financial success by building those things, but it seemed like from such a clear passion. My question would be, when you heard these sayings from your grandma in terms of don't take risks, rather be safe than sorry, was it at that time that you heard it, did it sound not like life? Or was it at a later point in time when you started realizing, oh, the saying that was going on actually isn't how I want to live my life? What was that like?
Yeah, that's really a great question. I think when, you're being raised up, it's almost programmed in, and it's enough to cause you to pause. But really what got me to thinking about it was there were some other sayings too. One of the sayings that really affected me the most negative way is stay humble. And stay humble is a great saying if you understand what true humility is, right? But I didn't understand what humility really was. I thought being humble was thinking of myself less and that other people had better gifts and talents and all those kind of things. And it wasn't really until I had a teacher challenge me to do something I'd never done before. And she challenged me to do something, nothing major or big. It was to run a 5K race. And I run this race, and I crossed that finish line, and they put that little finisher's medal around my neck. And this thought pops into my mind. I just ran 3 miles without stopping. I wonder what else I can do. And that 3 turned into 6, 6 turned into 13, 13 turned into 26, and 26 turned into 31. And I ran another 31-mile race on the beach in the sand, and I won it. And that's when it really clicked with me was, I just ran further than I thought was possible. I wonder what other areas of my life am I holding back in because of some of these other beliefs that I have of it's better to be safe than it is to be sorry, right? And again, our parents, they love us, right? They want to protect us and, those kind of things. But that's when it really started to question in my mind, wonder what else I can do. And I wonder what other areas of my life might I be holding back in. So that's a great question. And that's, early on, it gives you to kind of pause a little bit, but it took a moment for me like that to really start to question it.
Yeah, I get it. Here in Australia, we have the saying, the tall poppy syndrome, where it's just like, don't be the tall poppy because then other people will cut you down. And it's almost unconsciously woven into the communication and the statements that we make. And therefore, when we go out to do something like starting a business, when we go out to creating something we never created before, that type of metaphor and that type of meaning gets ingrained in us until we share otherwise. And it seems like what you did was do it through action, where you had these thoughts, you had these meanings. You're like, maybe I need to question that, and let's do it through action so I can show myself. If I can run, 5K and then 10K and then up to the point where we're running like 31 miles on sand, and then you're winning the race, that shows you, oh, okay, maybe the thoughts I had weren't correct, and what else is possible, right? Where did that lead to?
Yeah. First, I want to say the tall poppy syndrome. I'd never heard that until yesterday. Oh, really? And now back-to-back days, I've heard that phrase.
Was it Australian?
Well, I don't even know. I think I was listening to a podcast and I heard somebody. Yes, I think it was talking about Australia. So
interesting. Anyway, who'd you hear it from?
I just caught it in passing, and it just, I don't know what it was. The phrase just jumped out to me. I was like, that's interesting.
No, 2 days in a row. Maybe you need a week of content or something. I don't know. Maybe this might be a bit of a synchronistic moment, but who knows? We'll see where it goes, hey?
That's right. So kind of to answer your question, it did start to, it really just allowed me to kind of, get out of the weeds a little bit and get into the clouds and say, wonder what are some of the things that I'm kind of gifted at? What are some of the strengths that I have? What are some of these weaknesses that I have? These ideas that I have. I had an idea to build a 3-story mixed-use building in our downtown city here. And I don't know anything about building buildings or anything like that, but the idea just kind of kept coming back and coming back. And I said, can I do that? Is that something I can do? And then finally, I put a how in front of the can I. And when you put a how in front of the can I, it triggers that creative use of the imagination. So kind of going along with what your question was, I think for me, it was kind of taking the idea whatever it is, whether it's business or health and fitness or any other area, and kind of taking the idea and giving it shape and just asking, how can I, or what's at least one thing I know that I can do? Some people take the how can I and like, I don't know how to do all the steps, but you just have to know what's the first step, right? And as you take that first step, the next steps will be revealed. So for me, it was kind of toying with the idea and figuring out what's at least one thing I can do right now and taking action on that. And then as the next step is revealed, taking action on that. It's kind of just being obedient to that first next step, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, let me ask you, when you started asking yourself that question, because I know everyone here who's listening knows the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask yourself. We've heard that time and time again by many personal development speakers and Tony Robbins and all these really cool influencers. But one thing that comes to me when you ask that question, you start to say, well, how can I do this? What would that look like? What's the first step? What emotions did you feel when you asked that question for yourself?
Yeah, for me, it was honestly excitement. It really was, and enthusiasm. And really, as you think about it, what has helped me too is as you think about it, getting an image of what it is and what it's going to look like and feel like once you accomplish that, right? Um, One of the barriers that I've always had, but I'm actually starting to see it may be actually a strength, was I didn't feel like I'm very intelligent, honestly, not very smart. But I've also found that a lot of the intelligent people friends that I have, they sometimes reason out, they'll reason out different options. And I guess I'm just ignorant enough to take the step. But for me, it's always excitement, and just ready to get going. Some of that may be just out of pure ignorance though.
Yeah, possibly all of the above. But let me ask you, so we can close one of the loops. Before I ask you about, how you got into, leadership training and helping people become influencers and world leaders. One thing I want to ask is, what is your definition of humility? What is your what is that? You said humility, if you know what it actually means. What is that term to you, and how does that play out in your life?
Yeah, man, I'm glad you asked that question because, man, you could probably do a 2-hour seminar on that right there because that is something actually I've really struggled with. And, there's humility. You have the arrogance side that says, look at me. And then you have the false humility side that says, woe is me, right? But look at me, and woe is me, both point back to me. And that's not what true humility really is. And there is a common quote out there that says humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less, right? But the way I've kind of come to define humility is recognizing the gifts, the talents, and the abilities that you have, right? Recognizing those, using those to serve and add value to other people, right? And that's kind of what I see humility is. I know that I'm gifted in this, but it's not for me to hang on to. It's for me to use and to add value and to serve other people. That's kind of how I've come to define what true humility is.
Beautiful. Yeah, a lot of people can take that away because they might think getting my gifts out there might be me thinking I'm better than others, or might be thinking, it's against my nature. But our nature is to give. Our nature truly is to serve. And if we can look deep within and say, what are my gifts? What are my strengths? And what is naturally flowing through me that feels aligned to serve and to give, then I mean, you won't only feel aligned, but that's a good definition of being humble, because you'll definitely be aligned and heart-centered in your giving, not from an ego point of view, especially when you think it from the point, like, this is the way I think of it. I have certain gifts and certain things that feel in flow. And to be honest, that's not me. It's just flowing through me. So how the hell can I say this is me and I'm better than someone because I have this skill and they have that skill, or whatever? It's flowing through me, and that's got nothing to do with me. It's just, I'm just like, sort of like, sometimes I'm just the channel that things are coming through, and I can't take credit for that. That to me, on top of that, is true. Really is a humble way to look at it. But let me ask you, when you built, you built these businesses in obviously as a physical therapist and building, helping people with these gyms and all those different things. You sold those, you kept the kids, well done. How did you move on to training leaders and especially helping people become more influencers and to sort of become what you define as world famous? How is that, let's bridge the gap there.
Yeah. So when we sold the businesses, I really didn't know exactly. There was some kind of internal call, something, I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know exactly what that was. I knew I wanted to help people, but not just people. I wanted to help leaders. And I really knew I wanted to help leaders because if you can influence the influencers, your net is cast wider, right? If I could develop leaders who went out and developed leaders with good values-based leadership, then we're not just adding value. Now we're multiplying value because leaders are going to go do something. And if you're developing leaders who go out and develop leaders. So I had some kind of internal drive to do that. And I really just did not know where to start. So I just started going around and saying, hey, I'll come do some free lunch and learns. Let me just speak and just kind of like what you were talking about, networking and those kind of things. And as you add value to people, I found, honestly, if you just add value to people, if you care about people and value people, all that stuff is going to come back around to you. And as I did that, I got a little bit more clear on who I wanted to work with and where my little kind of niche was and some of the things that I was good at too, and who I wanted to work with. So that's kind of how it started, was some kind of little internal drive and just moving forward and trying to figure that out. But the underlying issue is trying to add value and serve people, really.
Great. Awesome. Well, Cory, let me ask you, what sort of challenges do people face where they say, "Oh my God, I got to go to Cory. I need to start learning from him." What are they facing? Where are they on their journey, and what challenges do they have?
Yeah. The biggest challenges that I see, most of the people I work with are kind of entrepreneurial. They're starting a business or they're early phase in their business. And then there's a kind of a gap too. I also work with the higher level leaders. So the biggest issue, if I could just put a common theme across the board, is knowing exactly what it is that they want, knowing where they want to go, right? They've kind of got some vague idea of where they individually want to be or where they want their business to be or their team to be, but they haven't got that clear. They haven't got that clear picture, that clear image. So kind of coming alongside of them and putting a clear image and a clear picture and a clear destination. Because if you can tell me where you want to go, then I can kind of help you get there. But getting that defined is pretty difficult for people. And I'll be honest with you, in goal setting, sometimes it's difficult, or vision casting and those kind of things, to get crystal clear on where you want to go. That's the biggest common theme I see when people kind of come and we start working together. Yeah.
I see it common as well, where people will jump on a journey, but they won't necessarily know where they're going. They might have a vague idea, but it's not very clear in their mind on the destination. So therefore, the decisions and actions they take might be a bit clouded by, something that might feel a bit more comfortable in the moment, might not feel as aligned. And they never seem to make consistent progress because they're not too sure on where they're going. What advice, whether it be quick tips or strategy or whatever it may be, what advice can you give to someone who might be a little bit unclear on where they want to go? The vision's blurry. They know they want to help. They know they want to do something. They know that they're being called to something, but they're not too sure what that is. What advice would you give someone?
Yeah. So a couple of things is sometimes what I have found is we almost kind of make it too big or too broad. So I kind of like to start with like a 6-month vision, right? So where would you love to be in 6 months from now? And allow it to not be this is where I would like to be or hope to be, but where would I love to be? And create like a 6-month vision. Write that vision out and make it plain, but writing it in the present tense. And as you start to read that, keeping that forefront of mind, the vision actually kind of becomes more clear and clear and clear. And that's why I also tell people, if you've got it perfected, that's great, but don't worry about perfection in the beginning. You just kind of get it out and you start moving, and I promise you it does kind of clear up. So if I could just do a super quick general, throw that one thing out there, that's been very helpful for me and some of my clients just starting out, is getting a 6-month vision and writing it down and speaking it out loud every day has been really helpful.
Great. Definitely in the present tense. So what does that look like? You say, I am now here. I am now experiencing this thing. I now feel this way. Is that what you sort of would recommend that people take the time to do?
Exactly. And our tendency is to, I'll start to write it, I will be at this level, right? We like to write it in the future tense, but writing it in the present tense kind of emotionalizes it a little bit, because we want to write it in the present tense, but we also want to see, get the image, and feel the emotion of what it's going to feel like, because our subconscious mind, if we wanted to go down all that route, subconscious mind is that emotional part of our mind, and that's where it's emotionalized. And I tell people too, is that if you've ever bought a car or a truck or whatever, and you've never seen that car or truck out, but then as soon as you buy it, everybody in the whole world went out and bought that same exact one, right? It seems like. But that car or that truck has been there the whole time. It's just never been forefront of your mind. But as you get this vision out and you start saying it every day, all the things you need, all the resources, all the people you need to meet, all the small little conversations you need to have are around you right now. But many times we miss out on it because it's not forefront of mind. So that's why I say a quick 6-month vision, emotionalize it, get the image, but write it in the present tense and saying it out loud will really help us really keep it forefront of mind as we go through our day. Totally.
Man, I've seen so many crazy things in my life once I started doing these exercises. I need reminding all of the time, of course, especially when you put it in the present tense, because you step into that version of you that's already created it, right? You step into the version of you that's already experienced it. You've already created it, and it gives you it's sort of similar to asking yourself the resourceful questions when you just get resourceful answers flowing through, right? It's almost like you've unlocked that side of you that's already achieved it. Therefore, you get the answers that you've already done it. And so things start flowing in a direction that is, towards your expansion. Whereas, like I say, if you place a goal that says, in 6 months, I'll be here, you'll always be at the sort of frame of mind that it'll always be in 6 months. In 6 months, it'll be again in 6 months, right? Because you haven't accessed that unconscious part of your brain that says, I'm that version of me who's achieved it. Is that what you've seen?
Oh, 100%. And it's, if you've never attempted it, you can probably listen to me and you talk right here and say, well, that's just crazy talk, right?
Yeah.
But I had a guy I was working with, and he didn't tell me till the other day. Now, this is going to be a very Southern American slang right here.
Go for it.
So maybe you've never heard this, but he said in the beginning, I thought that was a bunch of hogwash. But as he got going, he said, I mean, I've never seen anything like it, right? So you may be listening in and like, man, that just sounds like some crazy stuff, but it works. It really does. So yeah.
Beautiful. Now, how does that tie into helping people become influencers? How does it help people? How would you describe what you would the term of world famous? What is world famous? How do people get to that sort of that internal status of themselves and start to step out of their comfort zone?
Yeah. So kind of, I guess, where I got that from is, when you go on an airplane, they've got the seat in front of you, they got the little pocket, and they got the little magazine, right? If you fly. And I was flipping through it one day, and I came to this thing. It says world greatest orthopedic surgeon. Then you flip the next page and like world greatest neurosurgeon, those kind of things. And we got to our destination. We went to a restaurant, and on the menu it said world famous, steak or whatever. And it just got me to thinking, we can say world greatest or world famous whatever, and it not have any real meaning to it, right? So When I say world famous, I mean legitimately world famous. World famous in the eyes of the people who know you best, right? World famous in the eyes of the people you come in contact with day in and day out. Not necessarily the people who think they know you, but really being world famous in the eyes of the people who truly know you. So taking on that beingness of it's those closest to me who love and respect me the most. And I come up with like 4 or 5 different things that make a person world famous. But being world famous really is actually being the type of person other people willfully follow because of who you are and what you represent. And to me, that's true world famous, is when those closest to you can say that. And I heard a saying the other day, that you never want to meet your hero because you'll walk away disappointed. And I'll be honest with you, I don't ever want that to be kind of said about me if ever I was somebody's hero. You know what I'm saying? I want to be that type of person that adds value and truly be world famous. So that's kind of the meaning behind it, and come up with about 4 or 5 different things. But to answer your question of what does it actually mean, it's being that type of person that other people willfully follow because of who you are and what you represent.
Yeah, great. It's sort of, it's a different definition. A lot of people say world famous. It's like everyone across the world knows me. That's what makes me world famous. But in your eyes, it's sort of like more of your intimate world and being the version of yourself that you truly want to be, where people can follow you because of who you're being and what you stand for and what you represent. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. 100%. There's this very old poem I read about this guy. He said he wanted to change the world, right? I'm definitely going to paraphrase it. But he wanted to change the world, and he realized he couldn't change the world, so he tried to change his nation. And as he got a little older, he realized he couldn't change his nation, so he tried to change his family. And then as an old man, he realized that he couldn't change his family. But if he would have changed himself, then he could have changed his family. Him and his family could have changed the nation. And as a nation, possibly they could have changed the world, right? Mm-hmm. So it starts with changing your world and being world famous in your world and having that influence spread from there.
Wow. Yeah. Perfect. I love that. What came through my mind when I wake up and I do my meditations and I do my inner work, I imagine my day, whether it be going outside and observing nature, whether it be getting on calls like this, whether it be putting out a post on social media or organizing things within the serving circle. And I think about, that's my world. What version of me do I want to show up in that world? What version of me, like, what's my relationship with that? What's my relationship with that in my world right now? And how do I want to show up? What's the version of me that I want to show up? Time and time again, that's what I ask myself. And if people can start building a relationship with that, with their version of themselves and the world they find themselves in, that is your world. That is your world. And the ripple effect of that creates something massive, even if your mind can't see it, even just the vibration you're showing up in. I think that's powerful. So where can people apply this? When someone's growing a business, let's say they started a coaching business, they're wanting to get their gifts out there to the world. They're wanting to put themselves out on social media or create a podcast or create a group or whatever's aligned with them. How do you think they can apply this, where they can see themselves as world famous, so they can start being the influencer that they truly want to step into?
Yeah. So again, I thought about what makes somebody world famous, and came up with a few different thoughts. And one is you've got to choose your attitude, right? Your attitude is your choice. You can't control the things people say to you or do to you, whether they buy from you or not. And this is a sidetrack right there. One thing, as if you're going into a business, not everybody's going to buy from you. And one thing I always say is that, you can't be attached to the outcome, but you have to be attached to your participation in the outcome, right? But choose your attitude. It's you have that control. We've got 3 kids, and our oldest son, he came to me one day, and man, he was mad. Tyson, he was mad, right? He was mad, and he was so mad his little bottom lip was a quivering, right? And I asked him, I said, Colton, what's wrong, man? And he said, Brady just oh, Brady just made me so mad. And Brady is his 4-year-old brother. And I got down to it, and Brady had said something that made him mad. And I said, Colton, if somebody else can make you mad, if somebody else can make you sad, and if somebody else can make you glad, then you've been had. Somebody else can make you sad, mad, or glad. You've been had, because what you've done is you've given somebody else complete control over the one thing you have control over, and that's your emotion, your attitude. And your attitude is your choice. And you're far too valuable to be giving somebody else control over your attitude. So if we're going to be world famous, all of our emotions, sad, mad, glad, all those things, those are our emotions. And there's a time to do that. But we have to be in control of that if we're going to be world famous.
Yeah. What was Colton's reaction when you said that?
He was mad. He didn't want to hear that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't get it, and stop being.
He said, I'm going to mom. No.
And then that's when you say to the mom, this is exactly what you say. Say the exact same thing.
That's right. Yeah. But he was mad. He didn't want to hear it at that point.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't ready to receive it maybe, but I mean, no doubt you put a seed, you planted a seed in there that gives him a bit more control, and no doubt when he's sleeping, or maybe when he's grown up in a couple more years, it'll start making more and more sense. But the fact was, you said what was on your heart, right? You said what was on your mind in terms of what you felt called to share. That's beautiful. And I find that with a lot of people who are starting business, if they can choose their attitude, they have control over how resourceful they're willing to be, right? How resourceful they're willing to be. And I think that's super key, especially in this day and age when who the hell knows what's going to happen next, right? The whole world can crumble down, and people are either feeling more and more empowered, more and more opportunity, or they crumble down with it, and they leave themselves feeling, not as empowered. What else do you have? What else is a true key to being world famous and an influencer that they want to be?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly tell you some of them, and then really touch on one. So the number 2, I would say, is be present. For me, that's sometimes tough, especially as an entrepreneur. Your mind's probably constantly going. But be present means, hey, if you're out eating lunch with a friend, then you're out eating lunch with that friend, not the one on social media, right? And if you're going to add value to people, then you've got to give them your time and your attention. And I think that is key as well. Another one is find your passion, right? People with passion, man, they light the world on fire, right? They stand out. People on passion, people take notice of that. People can find, and when you're in your passion and your strength zone, man, you really can serve people like that. I would say another one is exceed expectations. Culture today has made exceeding expectations so easy for people who actually give a little bit extra. Being extraordinary takes just a little bit of extra, and just exceeding expectations. Most people want to meet expectations, and if you're going to be world famous, then you got to exceed expectation. The other one, the last one I'd really like to touch on, is make that commitment to growth. One of the things I found out early on when we first opened up our business, one of the most scary moments for me when we had our business was the time we hired our first team member. Because what I realized was that now the decisions I made as the leader didn't only affect me and my family, now they affected somebody else's family, right? And as the leader, as the business owner, I was the lid on my business. My business and my team would never surpass my ability to lead them. But if I grew, if I made the commitment to grow, then the potential of my team and my business would grow as well. And as I did grow, that's what happened. And John Maxwell says it this way, that growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow is going to be better. And if you're not growing today, then today is all you will ever be. And I don't know about you, Tyson, but at 35, if that's true, that means I am capped out and I'm maxed out at 35. And that's way more depressing than motivating. So make that commitment, and invest in yourself. I just can't say that enough, that making that commitment to invest in you, read the books, go to the courses, do the seminars, all those things that are in alignment with kind of what you were saying earlier, Tyson, in alignment with where you want to go, invest in that. So I would say that would be another one too.
Totally. Yeah, I totally feel that. And especially in the moments when you can invest in courses, in books, in time, doing your meditations, spiritual practices, whatever it may be. But especially when things are tough, especially when things in your circumstances didn't match up to the way your mind thinks they should be, or match up to what your mind thinks will happen or should happen, right? When things happen like that, that's the best area of growth. That's like, man, this is like, growth on steroids right now, when things are falling apart and expectations are being broken and stories are being, thrown away. And I find that when we have, like, a lot of people go and they read books every day, but then when something happens that, that completely shatters their world, they can start recognizing the opportunity there. The opportunity there to grow is exactly the same. It's actually so much more powerful than the 30 minutes you take reading the book. In fact, you can take the 30 minutes you take reading the book and apply it to what just happened, apply it to that circumstance and change your life in that way. But what came to mind for me, a question was, what's next for you in terms of your growth? Do you have a 6-month, 12-month goal, or do you have a certain vision that you really want to create, and how are you growing, and what's next around the corner for you?
Yeah, that is a great question. One of the things I like to do at the end of the year is kind of reflect on the year and prepare for the upcoming year. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm really trying to hone that in. But I feel like it's a lot around culture transformation in our local community, changing of mindsets and developing more leaders, and really being intentional about developing leaders. One of my biggest mistakes in our business was developed a bunch of followers, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way that they followed, but I held on to everything, right? Like, I didn't empower other people. I didn't do a great job of developing their gifts and talents. And what happened was, because I developed followers and not leaders, when we transitioned out of the business went down a little bit. Now it's since come back, but it took a little bit. And it was because I didn't invest the time in intentionally developing leaders. And that's kind of the direction I'm planning to go, is developing really, really, really intentionally, trying to develop more leaders and being intentional with that. That's kind of my focus, working on honing in what exactly that looks like, but culture transformation, developing leaders. So
Amazing. What is a leader to you? And what do you think it is about the culture, especially the Western world that we live in, where we don't necessarily encourage the journey of becoming a leader? Mm. What is that about for you? And why do you feel so called to shift that so that people become more leaders in their life?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is a lot of passivity, and a lot of, going back to the definition of humility, recognizing the gifts, talents, and abilities that I have, and putting those gifts and talents in the game, man, getting those gifts and talents in the game. I see a lot of people, man, one thing I just really want to say is that this world needs your gifts, right? When you don't get them gifts out there, your talents out there, you're not only hurting yourself, but you're robbing the world of something truly incredible. I heard a pastor, I forget his name, but one of the things that he said just really stood out to me. He said, the richest places in the world aren't the diamond mines and the gold mines. The richest places in the world are the cemeteries, because that's where all the ideas have been buried, right? People had ideas, but they never put them into action. And really, I really want people to see their unique value, their unique gifts, and encourage them to step out and get out there and put them into use. And when I say a leader, what I mean by that is someone that a follower is someone who's just kind of doing, right? They're doing their stuff. Maybe they've got their gifts and they're out there. But a leader is someone who is like a river and not a reservoir. They're not holding on to their gifts. They're rivers that their gifts and talents are flowing through, but they're actively going out and developing other people too, right? So it's not just staying with them. They're developing, but they're also developing other people too. So it's a multiplier effect.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And a lot of people can listen to this and think that sounds great. You know, it sounds very positive. It sounds very motivating, and not actually implement it in their life. What I found is listening to these reminders, these principles, these core foundation of what it means to be not only successful, but fulfilled, and to be able to actually apply it. Think in your day right now and think, what is ahead and how can I apply this? Whether it be world famous right now and say, how do I want to show up? Or whether it be a leader and say, you know what are my gifts inside here that I want to give? Instead of holding on to them and think all these expectations on what that looks like and how much I need to get paid for it and all those different things, or maybe people might judge me, whatever, and just putting it out there and seeing what happens. You know, actually thinking that and actually implementing it. I think it creates a momentum and it creates a snowball effect where your energy, your vibration, your resourcefulness, you know, your creativity just flows through by the actions that you take. And I think from hearing your story and hearing what you've, you know, so valuably gave here was that you're consistently implementing this stuff. You're consistently giving you the lessons to your kids and the lessons in your business and your leadership and transforming, selling those parts and expanding on other things that feel calling. You're actually living it. And that's what's so cool. Is that the way you would describe it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I definitely try to be a product of the product. I mean, it would be a whole lot easier for me and you just to come on here and talk about it and tell people what they should do, right? But I try not to should on people, tell you something you should do if I've never attempted it, right? So yes, 100%. And it is, right? The best thing you can do is not tell people what they should do, but show them what you did, right? Help them along the journey. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, this has been an incredible conversation of just reminders of how to really be world famous in your own eyes and start taking that shift of being an influencer, being a leader from your own life. And I know it's not easy. I know it's uncomfortable at times, but it truly is the most fulfilling journey. And it truly is, it's clearly something you're passionate about and what you're putting out to the world. So how is it people can find out more about you? Where can they go and what can they do?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Tyson. And I'm a cookies on the bottom shelf kind of guy. I like to keep things simple and easy. I've created a landing page and a website for your listeners, and on there it's got some of the links. I'm on all the social media sites, but it's got links on there for you to do that. And a website is CoryLeeLeadership.com/awaken. And on there, I've got actually 2 free downloads for your listeners. One is a kind of like a personal assessment to see how balanced you are in life. But then the other one is a spousal survey. So you can download that, you give it to your spouse, they fill it out. And really the goal there is to create some good communication between you and your spouse. If you have a significant other, maybe a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, right? But really to develop some good communication between you and your relationship. So those are there, CoryLeeLeadership.com/awaken. And I appreciate that. And I hope it adds value to you guys.
No doubt it will be. Anytime we can get some insight, anytime you can have some more self-awareness, I'm all for it. And everyone on here is as well. They know the benefit. A small shift in your level of awareness leads to a completely different destination down the road. And so that's what I've seen in my life and everyone else has as well. But I want to thank you for being on here. Is there anything else that you want to add? Anything else that's flowing through that you think can add value or that would make this conversation feel complete?
Yeah, I do hope this has added value to you. And I just want to really hone in on what you had just mentioned, that sometimes it's not easy and most of the time it's not, right? It's most of the time like a roller coaster, but really the world needs your gifts and your talents. I really do want to say that because there's never been anybody like you. There never has been and never will be. There's only one you. And this world needs your gifts and your talents and your abilities. So
No,
that's the only other thing I would add.
totally. And I'll wrap up by saying, it's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be easy because we have to evolve into the version of ourselves that's capable of being a leader, that's capable of overcoming things with courage or with passion and discipline, right? There are some aspects that are meant to be challenging, that are meant to be tough, because that's how we grow and how we develop into that version of ourselves. Like you said, the version of you that's going through your life, adding value, sharing your gifts, all those good things. Cory, you clearly have a lot of gifts in this area of leadership, and no wonder you love doing what you do and passing on those gifts. I'll put your links in the show notes so people can reach out, people can learn more about you, and definitely get onto those resources, because a lot of people on here have a spouse, and it's an aspect of growth for many people. So thanks so much for setting those up for the audience. I just want to thank you for being on here, man. It's been great.
Yeah, well, Tyson, thanks again for the opportunity. I've enjoyed it.